So I'm just gonna come out and say it. Warrior Priest is one of the best classes in the game. I think right now he's really only beat out by the Battle Wizard. He just does everything that he sets out to do extremely well. He is great at dealing with hordes. He is great at killing elites, probably one of the best in the game at killing elites. His ult is probably one of the best in the game, if not the best. He is without a doubt S tier, not just for quick play, but also for premates. So this video is going to be going over, kind of the strategic way to play him and also the build that I think is best for him right now. So to just kind of get into it, I think if you're playing optimally, the weapon you want to use in your first slot, or your second slot, I guess it doesn't really matter, is the Flail and Shield. Now, I did a lot of testing between the Flail and Shield and the dual hammers, because that's really the two main competitors. And now, the Flail and Shield is actually a little bit better at dealing with dense hordes. And that's not just the light attack spam, that's also spamming heavies. And spamming heavies is a little bit safer, and I think has like a larger arc that it hits. I was kind of surprised of how poorly the dual hammers performed compared to the Flail and Shield. Now, with that being said, obviously it's best if you have the red version of the Flail and Shield. I don't have that, but the blue stats you want to go with is most definitely block cost reduction. The second one, it kind of depends on your preferences. I like the attack speed. I think it makes the heavy spam feel smoother, and also, it can't hurt with the light spam. But you could also go like power versus chaos, power versus Skaven, and of course we go with Swift Slaying as the trait because, you could probably go opportunist, but the thing is, like, attack speed feels so good on this weapon because it makes the heavy spam like a lot faster. It feels so much better when you get Swift Slaying going, and of course, once again, it can't even hurt when you're using the light attack spam. And I think you are best off if you also take the Great Hammer. I think it's probably his best weapon for killing elites. There's somewhat of an argument for the Toman Hammer, but that one can be a little awkward and there's a learning curve to using it. And using the Great Hammer is relatively easy. You just have to learn one combo, and if nothing else, honestly, just spamming lights on elites is going to work with this weapon. So the blue stats you want to go with, I go with power versus chaos on this one because I think it helps you deal with chaos warriors. Essentially, you'll be able to kill chaos warriors in 4 to 5 hits. If one of them crits, it'll be 4 hits. And it just helps it out a little bit. And of course, we want to take a block cost reduction. And for the trait, you don't really have a good argument to take Swift Slaying because really you're pulling this out to deal with elites, and like attack speed could kind of help, I guess. I think Opportunist is a much better option. Now, I don't think there is like a set in stone absolute best build for Warrior Priest thus far. That being said, this is kind of what I've landed on. They're not for sure the best, but this is the build that I prefer the most. This is the one that gets the most value for the most amount of time. But you do have options here. For instance, in the level 10 talent, Rising Judgment is completely just preference because I like to mix up using lights and heavies. I think it makes using the Flail and Shield a little bit more interactive, so I'm not just spamming. Unstoppable Force is also pretty good. If you're someone who likes to spam your push attacks a lot, this would be great. And also, you could probably do a fun crit build with Sigmar's Executioner. And for the level 30 talent, I think each one of them has their use. I think United and Prayer is the most reliable because one thing you have to keep in mind is that it also doubles the damage it does, and from 2 different sources. And if you're in a really thick situation and 2 of your teammates are invulnerable, then that becomes a lot easier to deal with. I could see Comet Skiff being useful sometimes, but it would be the kind of thing where only you get the full use out of it if you witness one of your teammates get clobbered by an overhead and then, you ult them and it's like it never even happened. That's very, very situational. But in the situations it does work, it's really, really good. Now, Unyielding Blessing, I think, would be really good if you had something like a Shade on your team. You could just ult the Shade as soon as a boss spawns, and they essentially delete the boss without even getting touched. United and Prayer, I think, is going to be your best bet if you're trying to run a super optimized build. Now for the combos, the Flail and Shield is another weapon that's really easy to use. But there's really only one thing you need to know, and that's the first 2 lights are 2 overheads, but they're completely skippable by doing a push attack. You do a push attack and you just start spamming lights, and this will deal with hordes. Another thing you could do is just spam heavies. You don't even have to cancel it, you just kind of get the timing down. It might take a second, I just practice it a little bit. But see, with Swift Slaying, this feels really nice. And like I was talking about with using Rising Judgment, one thing you could do is start out with using lights. Once you get to 5 stacks, you push and then go into heavies. And then you could go back. And you don't even necessarily have to wait to get to 5 stacks. But Rising Judgment really incentivizes you to kind of mix up the different combo you're using. And that's really all there is to the Flail and Shield. It's a very good weapon, easy to use, and pretty safe too. Now, for dealing with elites, you're going to want to pull out the Great Hammer. And your combo for the Great Hammer is really simple. It's just light, light, heavy. And you want to aim for the head. I did a terrible job of hitting the head there. So this is going to kill a Storm Vermin all the way up to Cataclysm. And if you get a headshot with one of the first 2, it might even kill him with the first 2 hits. With Chaos Warriors, it generally will take about 4 to 5 hits. And so to kind of demonstrate that, you do the combo. You just do it again. Real easy. And one thing to mention though with Chaos Warriors, it's not necessarily a good idea to go for the big heavy every time. Sometimes it might just be better to spam the first 2 lights because you're leaving yourself very vulnerable while you're charging up that 3rd heavy. One thing I forgot to mention about the Flail and Shield is that the heavy spam is absolutely incredible at dealing with Storm Vermin patrols. It's not the same with Chaos Warriors. Now if we look at the numbers, both heavy attacks have the tank attribute, a lot of cleave, a lot of stagger, a lot of damage, and a lot of armor piercing damage. So what that means essentially is if there's a Storm Vermin patrol, you can just spam it and everything in front of you is going to be staggered and is going to be taking a fair amount of damage. Now shielded enemies can kind of be a problem while you're using the Great Hammer, also while you're using the Flail and Shield. The main combo that I found that is somewhat consistent is a push attack, light, light, heavy. So it's the same combo but with a push attack in front of it. And what the push attack will get them to drop their shield. You'll probably hit the first light, probably not the second light, and if you hit the heavy, it's probably gonna die. And it's a problem because you stagger so much. You essentially have to chase after the enemy while you're doing the combo, and that is not a good idea when you're facing a patrol or if there's a bunch of other enemies around the shielded enemy. So that is the basics of using the weapons. I encourage you to either get into the modded realm and spawn some enemies to get some practice, or just using the training dummies works too. And of course, best situation, you're just running games with these weapons. So now we will talk more about the strategic aspect of the Warrior Priest by looking at some footage and kind of giving you my analysis of it. Now, as always, the first thing you want to do when you get into a lobby is kind of decide what your role is in this team composition. So if you're in this lobby, you get really happy because everybody else on your team can completely just take care of themselves. You have 2 tanks and a battle wizard. You don't have to peel for anybody. So what that allows us to do is really go for damage and kind of just reinforce what the tanks are doing. So one thing we have not talked about yet is how to use your ult. And you want to use it basically anytime that you can. Anytime there's any possibility that somebody could take damage, definitely if somebody could go down. But the idea is to use it very liberally because you're going to prevent a lot of damage. And it's only a minute cooldown. If you're running a cooldown trinket, then it's less than that. And if you're fighting a horde, it's going to be even lower. So yeah, you want to use it basically whenever you can. Don't hesitate with this ult. It's a short cooldown, and it's one of the highest value ults in the game. So when you see something like this, there's a horde approaching with some Plague Priests, then I pulled out my hammer here. I don't know if that was such a great idea. I think it would have been best to kind of do my standard combo, do the push attack into lights and then go into heavies. I think the most important thing there is to just kind of keep your cool and play it safe. Make sure you don't take a bunch of hits. Again, using the ult liberally. A part of what makes a good warrior priest is being able to read a situation and kind of gauge whether we're in a situation where somebody could take a considerable amount of damage. Again, another trigger to use your ult is when somebody gets hooked or gets disabled by any kind of special. And here we go, more Plague Priests, and this I think turns into a pretty dicey horde situation. For whatever reason, it's just me and the Foot Knight here, just me and Kruber, just handling these guys. The other two are off doing God knows what. And you'll see the great value you get out of the ult here. That could have gotten really bad. We had 3 Plague Priests on us, and we don't necessarily have the damage to take them out right away. And again, they're kind of coming from both sides. I don't know what the guys are doing over there. So in this kind of situation, you want to make sure you're dodging a lot. And here, I think I actually end up turtling up and spamming heavies. You kind of see I still take damage, but because of the temp HP I have, it doesn't even really make a difference. And so the heavy spam is really good at clearing hordes too. You can see it there pretty well. The next clip is going to show a pretty good way of dealing with Chaos Patrols when you have Warrior Priest and Ironbreaker. Ironbreaker ults, we ult him, bomb, bomb. And from here on out, you see I kind of had to decide what to do there for a second. But we pull out the Great Hammer and we just hit whatever we can. You see the crazy amount of damage that we do to Chaos Warriors. Not even doing the combo right all the time. Another thing you need to think about when you're playing this class is you need to be really good at dodging specials. So it would not be a bad idea to practice dodging choke rats and life leeches and so on.
All afflictions end in heresy, salt player.
I have been trained to always assume the worst, and by experience, learned the value of those lessons. Compassion is too often repaid with betrayal.
I'll bear that in mind.
You see here, my ult's just about to come up, and right when it's up, I look for someone to ult, and Barden just happened to be standing in the middle of the pool. So again, getting as much value out of it as we possibly can. It's going to do a lot of damage. That allowed us to take out 2 Chaos Warriors. And then here, the heavy spam is just absolutely crazy how good it is. Look at the Storm Vermin. They can't do anything to me because I'm just spamming heavies. Great for turtling situations like that. If things ever get awkward and you're using the Flail and Shield, you can just turtle up and spam heavies. So yeah, I mean, that was really one of the games where we had like an ideal composition for Warrior Priest. If we had something like a Huntsman, an Outcast Engineer, maybe even a Way Watcher, we would probably be just sticking to them and making sure they're not dying. Because really your job is to give space for the special snipers to do their thing. The one major flaw of the Warrior Priest is that he doesn't have a ranged weapon, so he can't really deal with specials. So yeah. We actually ended up out damaging the Battle Wizard somehow in this game. That is not a normal thing. Don't feel bad if you're not topping damage, because that is not a normal thing to Warrior Priest. And you should be really looking at damage taken. If you have the least amount of damage taken, then you should be happy with your performance. And you should also look at whoever you decided to protect that game, see how much damage they took, and kind of gauge how you did off of that. That's a way better indicator than damage done. So yeah. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like it. Please subscribe. I like making these videos. I'm going to continue to make them. I'm still kind of learning to articulate and be entertaining, but I appreciate you all watching, and I will see you on the next one.